I'm Katie, and I'm currently taking the Real Estate Pre-License course through Metro Brokers Academy School for Real Estate. I want to invite you to study with me on my channel. We will review all the chapters individually, as well as the vocabulary you need to know within each chapter. So don't forget to like and subscribe at the end. Without further ado, let's move on to today's topic. Real Estate Exam Prep. Property Review with Katie Landers Does Real Estate. Before we get started, let's take a look at today's outline regarding property and all the things we will be covering. You can find this outline in the description below of this video. After we review this chapter, you can also look forward to a chapter quiz and vocabulary, so don't forget to subscribe. Let's get started. What is property? Property is defined as a specific object owned plus the rights of ownership. Property includes the rights and interests the owner has in the object owned. Property includes but is not limited to possessions, someone's belongings, personal effects, valuables, real estate, chattel, etc. There are two different types of property: personal property and real property. Personal property, also known as chattels. Personal property mainly consists of movable items. Personal property is transferred through a bill of sale, so something you would get a receipt for. Personal property equals movable, something that can move. Chattel Personal is clothes, shoes, furniture, cars, boats, etc. Things that are personal items or possessions, like the things Amazon delivers to your house. Chattel Real is purchase options, leases, contracts, mortgages, etc. Things that extend to the owner an interest in real property. Personal property equals movable. Very important to know. Now let's talk about real property. Also known as real estate is land plus things which are permanently attached to the land. Improvements. Permanent man-made attachment to the land, i.e. buildings or a house, fences, roads. It also includes the legal rights and interests that go with the land. Real property is transferred through a deed. Appurtenances. Appurtenances are things that may be used with the land for its benefit and goes to the new owner when ownership of the land is transferred. Rights such as mineral rights, water rights, air rights, easements, improvements, and natural attachments are pertinent to the land. In simpler terms, an appurtenance is any right, interest, or improvement which automatically conveys with ownership. It is said to run with the land. Real property equals immovable. You cannot move it. When a person buys land, the deed will only describe the land itself, but it includes the improvements like houses or buildings, natural attachments, as well as the person's specific ownership rights. Land, attachments, and the rights of real property ownership are real property. And again, real property is immovable. That means it cannot move. What is land? The definition of land is that it starts at the Earth's center, which is the subsurface right, passes through the surface and extends into space above the surface, which is the air right, to an indefinite height. What is an attachment? Attachments are also referred to as tenements or improvements. They are either man-made or products of nature. Attachments are permanently attached to the land physically or legally. Items that are artificial attachments, like fences, swimming pools, or buildings, are items that people don't usually have an intention to move when the real property is transferred or sold. So, something like a hot tub. Natural attachments are broken down into two categories and can be considered real or personal property: fructus naturalis and fructus industrialis. Fructus naturalis are things that grow naturally requiring no annual cultivation. So things like your perennials that come back every year on their own. Rose bushes, shrubs, shade trees. These are considered real property and would automatically transfer with the land. Fructus industrialis, on the other hand, is also known as an implement. These are your annual crops and plants that have to be planted and harvested each year. So like watermelon, tomatoes, wheat, etc. These are considered personal property and will not automatically transfer with the land. If someone wants it, then an agreement would need to be made in order for them to transfer. Rights relating to real property. These include air, mineral, and water rights. These rights are considered real property. Water rights. Percolating water. Percolating water is underground water that is confined to a specific waterway and shared with others like neighboring owners. Perc Test is used to test the water for a septic system. It is the level in which water absorbs. Again, a Perc Test is used to test the water for a septic system. It is the level in which water absorbs. Water table is the level at which percolating water is found, used for wells or irrigation. Then you have navigable and non-navigable water. Navigable waters are waters used for commercial shipping, open to the public. Ownership rights would extend to the high water mark or riverbank. Non-navigable waters are waters used for swimming, boating, or fishing. The owner usually owns land to the center or middle of that waterway. Riparian rights. I like to remember riparian rights by ripples. They involve properties that border rivers or streams. The owner will have the right to use the water for swimming and boating or fishing. Ownership right is not exclusive and may be shared. Littoral rights involve properties which border large bodies of water, as large navigable lakes, rivers, and seas. Involves the right to use the beach or water, but that right does not interfere with the public's use. Navigable, so ownership stops at the high tide or high water mark. Water rights. You have correlative rights. An owner has a reasonable share of the water during times of short supply. Prior appropriation is the right to use water is secured by a permit. In times of drought, earlier permits have priority. Mineral rights. Mineral rights are an owner's right to things such as coal, oil, gas on or below the Earth's surface. These rights are considered real property. Once they are removed, they become personal property. Mineral rights can be sold separately or retained from the land itself. Mineral rights are usually extracted for profit. Mining operators need to be aware of two important things: the right of lateral support and the law of capture. The right of lateral support states that the natural contour of an adjoining land must not be damaged when extracting minerals from the land. The law of capture allows a well drilled on one property to extract oil and gas from under an adjoining property. Does not need to be just from under your land. So you can go under your land and go see what's underneath your neighbors, whoever drills first. Air rights. Air rights extend into the space above the land to infinity. They can be sold or leased separately from the land itself. This has become more popular due to the scarcity and cost of land in big cities. An example is the buildings erected in the airspace above railroad tracks or the World Congress Center in Atlanta. Condo ownership is another example of air rights. Each owner owns a block of airspace measured from inside wall to inside wall, called an air lot. Examples of the leasing of air rights include communication or cell towers. Changes of property. Severance. Process where something is real property is turned into personal property. For example, trees or timber grown on land. It is real property, but when it is cut to be sold as lumber, it becomes personal property. Fixtures. Fixtures are property that were once considered personal property but turned into real property and would then automatically transfer with the land. For example, wall-to-wall carpet, built-in cabinets, or a wall unit. Sometimes it's not clear whether something is a fixture. A problem arises when one party believes that an item comes with the house but the other does not. The test as to whether something is a fixture is MARIA. That stands for modification, attachment, relationship to parties, intentions of annexing party, and agreement. Modification. Modification, if something is modified to fit the building or house, then a fixture, i.e. wall-to-wall carpet, remnant, AC unit, window unit, or cut into the wall, deck around a hot tub, or custom windows. So that hot tub would have been personal property because it's not fixed to anything. But if you actually build a deck around it, then it becomes a fixture. Attachment. Things physically attached or screwed in are real property, such as shelves, drapery rods, etc. Some exceptions are legal attachments. Garage remote controls and access keys are legal attachments. They aren't physically attached, but they are a fixture because they are needed specifically to get into the house. Relationship to parties may be determined by the relationship the party has to the property. Built-in kitchen appliances are fixtures in a house, but if the property was a restaurant, it would be considered personal property or a trade fixture. Now, what are trade fixtures? Trade fixtures must be a new addition to the property and not a replacement for something already there. Tenant can remove before the lease ends. If the trade fixture is not removed at or before the end of the lease, it becomes the property of the landlord by a process called accession. A good example of a trade fixture is like a salon chair. Sometimes these are fixed to the ground with bolts and screws. However, they were placed after the lease began and then are removed before the lease is over so they can go with a beauty stylist to their next location. Intentions of annexing party. If the annexing party intended for the item to be attached to the house, then it is a fixture. An example would be an antique chandelier that has been in the family for several years. The seller may have never intended for it to be permanently attached to the house or remain with the property, but this should be specifically mentioned in the contract. Agreement. Debatable items like patio furniture, ceiling fans, gas logs, window treatment should be specifically mentioned and addressed by any real estate agent. Land characteristics. Land can never become personal property. It is possible for a house to become personal property if it is picked up and moved. While it is being moved, it is personal property. When it is once again permanently attached to the land, it becomes real property again. Physical characteristics of land. Immobility. Location can't be moved. It can be altered to suit a person's need, but never moved. Non-homogeny. Two pieces of land are the same, identical in size, appearance, etc., but location can't be the same. Indestructibility. Can't be destroyed, remains the same regardless of man-made or natural changes. It is very important to know what the physical characteristics of land are: immobility, non-homogeny, and indestructibility. Now let's talk about economic characteristics of land. You have location, preference, also called situs. I don't know why I don't like that word. I can't figure it out if it's situs or situs, but location or preference, that's what you need to know. The value of land is based on its location. 1 acre in Buckhead is worth much more than an acre of land in a rural part of Georgia where I live, like North Georgia, Flowery Branch. The location to schools, shopping, or transportation all affect the value of the land. A good example is the Braves Stadium. It is everything, all the factors that go into choosing a location. Next, we have improvements. The value of a land is affected by the improvement of the land. the size of the house on the land, or other things attached to the land. A neighborhood of 1 acre parcels with a 4,000 square foot house on them will be more valuable than 1 acre lots with a basic 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house on them. Then you have a fixed investment. Real estate lasts a long time. The economic life of a building is what is utilized to determine the return of investment. Lastly, you have scarcity. The value is determined by scarcity. The availability of land will increase or decrease its value. Buckhead acre is more expensive than a rural acre in Georgia. So very important to know the physical characteristics of land and the economic characteristics of land. You have 4 economic characteristics of land. Descriptions of real property. Legal description. No 2 parcels of land are ever exactly alike. Each parcel has a unique location, and this is a street address is not enough to legally describe a parcel. A legal description needs to be precise and non-ambiguous and will identify the property so that it can't be mistaken for another. When there is an issue with boundary lines, one should get a survey. Spot survey is the survey a buyer receives at closing. So again, the legal description. No 2 parcels of land are ever exactly alike. Each parcel has a unique location, and the street address is not enough to legally describe a parcel. A legal description needs to be precise and non-ambiguous and will identify the property so that it can't be mistaken for another. When there is an issue with boundary lines, one should get a survey. Spot survey is the type of survey a buyer receives at closing. Now there's 3 forms of legal descriptions. The first one is metes and bounds. Legal descriptions are based on the property's boundary lines. Metes and bounds are the most authoritative and complete description. You have boundary lines that are identified by landmarks or monuments. These can be artificial or natural. This is still used today in remote areas. These are also made of compass directions utilizing bearings shown in degrees. They must have a definite point of beginning, which is often identified by a benchmark, permanent point of reference, and a point of return called a closure. They can consist of any number of sides, so it can be a square, triangle, whatever. Now here we have some examples of what a metes and bounds actually looks like, and then an example of how it would read over here. A good suggestion would be to take a screenshot of this, maybe print it out and study it. The next form of a legal description is a rectangular survey or government survey. These are designed to be faster and simpler than metes and bounds. There are no physical monuments but imaginary lines like a grid, a waffle iron of squares like you see right there in the middle of the screen. It uses language like principal meridians, baselines, and ranges. A township is 6 miles to a side or 36 square miles. Each township is divided into 36 sections that are 1 mile to a side. Length times width square is 6 by 6 equals 36. Section contains 640 acres or 1 square mile. It's very important to remember a township and a section. These are not used in Georgia. Rectangular surveys are mainly utilized in the West and Midwest. So here we have a really good image of what these kind of look like and what they consist of. Again, I would take a screenshot and print it out and just study it. The final legal description is a recorded plat, short form description. This is the most convenient legal description. A subdivision is recorded as a plat of land showing how it will be divided, blocks, and lots that are assigned letters and numbers, including exact sizes and dimensions. Then all future legal descriptions will just refer to the subdivision, lot and block numbers, plat book, and page numbers. There will be one description for the entire subdivision, and each property will just refer to a lot and block. So again, we have a nice little example here of what a recorded plat looks like. You also have a vertical land description. So you got the legal description, then you have a vertical land description. When describing air rights and subsurface rights, other legal descriptions must be used. Descriptions must reference not only length and width, but also height. Datum is a base point from which height and depth can be measured. It is measured by the sea level in the New York Harbor, which is used for the entire country. Now, guidelines for Georgia. Rectangular survey is not used in Georgia. All sale contracts or lease without a sufficient legal description is not enforceable. It must contain more than just a street address. As an agent, you may be able to compose a short form description, but anything else should be done by a surveyor or attorney. When anything less than a full tract is being conveyed, a new survey should be obtained. And that's all I have for today's topic, folks. Thank you for studying with me, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more content.